our legitimacy comes from our members, the governments that together say, this is the organization in which we feel our voices are represented and that we want to help to grow the sector. When we started, the United Nations helped us in the process, but we are actually not. We have a relationship, but we're not affiliated to the United Nations.
Friends, we have an announcement. On October 28, 29 and 30, Map It Forward is proud to present the first of its kind live online event titled Introduction to Regenerative Coffee Farming. This workshop will happen live in 3 different events in English, Spanish and Portuguese to help coffee producers and the rest of us in the coffee industry understand regenerative ag and how to implement it so that coffee farmers stand a chance at surviving these brutal weather conditions long into the future. It will also help us understand how we can talk about regenerative ag to our customers. This live online presentation will be led by highly specialized and experienced agronomists, coffee producers, and agricultural engineers who have worked transforming coffee farms from conventional farms to regenerative farms and agroforestry around the world. Tickets are $10 for coffee producers and $150 for everybody else. When you pay $150 though, you're securing your ticket and the ticket of 14 other coffee producers that didn't quite have the funds to pay for their own tickets. Not only does your ticket buy you access to the workshop, but it also gives you access to newly formed WhatsApp groups, one in English, one in Spanish, one in Portuguese, where people can continue to exchange information and ideas about regenerative ag before and after the workshops. For more details, head to mapitforward.coffee/workshops. Check the link in the show notes for details and help us spread the word about this workshop by sharing our posts on social media. Welcome to the Daily Coffee Pro by Map It Forward, friends. I'm your host, Lee Safar, and this is episode 1 of a brand new 5-part series. In this series, we are talking to Miguel Zamora from the ICO, the International Coffee Organization. Miguel, welcome to the podcast for the first time.
Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. I'm very, very excited about this conversation. I have been fortunate enough to have a conversation with you before in the preliminary discussion. I walked away from that very excited because we haven't had anyone on this podcast before from the ICO. And it was a pleasure to have that discussion with you. I learned a lot. I got some insight into what you're doing. And I got the impression that you're somebody who's doing work that you actually care about. And I really like meeting people who are values driven this way. So in this whole series, folks, we're going to be talking about something really important, which is a living income for coffee producers. And Miguel is the Coffee Public-Private Coffee Public-Private Taskforce Coordinator. Did I get it right?
CPP, yeah.
No, I'll leave the acronym up to you. But, and in this episode, we're going to talk about what the ICO is and what the Coffee Public-Private Taskforce actually is. So Miguel, tell us what you do, who the ICO is, etc., etc., etc.
Sure, no, thank you. Yeah, Miguel Zamora. I've been involved in coffee for quite a bit. Around 20 years. I'm an agronomist by training, but then I work in coffee, especially from civil society organization. The International Coffee Organization is an intergovernmental organization that is formed by many governments, such as the flags that are here in the back, that together work in coffee. It is the only intergovernmental organization that works in coffee that the members are both producing and consuming countries. That is from the producing side, as you can imagine, Brazil, Colombia, but also Vietnam, also Indonesia, Ethiopia. So the main coffee producing countries, but other countries that you may not know are important players, such as Togo, Angola, who are also members of the ICO, actually very active members, Cote d'Ivoire. So together with consuming countries, such as the European Union, Switzerland, Japan, and others who join are members of around 75 members that we have. Of these 42 producing countries, they represent over 93% of all of the coffee produced in the world. They are members. And over two-thirds of all of the coffee consumed in the world, they are also members. So they are the governments of these countries, elected by the people, for the most part, who are the members of our organization. As such, we have existed for over 60 years. not me, an organization.
I like that disclaimer there.
And it started with the support from the United Nations back then, when there was, because they saw coffee as an engine for development of countries, and the United Nations supported the creation of the International Coffee Organization, and it is ruled by what is called an international treaty. The government signed a treaty, back then it was the 1962 treaty, in which they decide a set of policies that they want to implement in coffee. Right now, we're in the 2007 treaty. The 2022 treaty was already approved by the council, but all of the countries need to ratify it through the Congress, just like any international treaty, to be in position to start playing right now. So that's just to give you a story that it's a very well represented. It's like the governments of the people in the organization. Now, talking to a little bit more, what do I do there? Back in 2019, when there was a coffee price crisis, a significant one, the countries, the members of the ICO came together with a lot of companies, some of the major coffee companies in the world, and decided we have to do something together on this. This is a major situation. This crisis come and go, but we have to think about the long-term future and what we can do together. So they created this Coffee Public-Private Taskforce. Key part there, coffee, we can take that for granted. Public-private is the key part there. It's the governments and companies working together in key issues. What are those issues? One of the main ones is living income. At the end of the day, they came together to try to create a more sustainable coffee sector, which, going back to what the ICO is, its mission is to make the coffee sector stronger and to grow it in a sustainable way for all of the stakeholders involved in coffee globally, right? Talking about producers, talking about companies, is that the whole sector and all of the companies and organizations and those sectors and all of the governments were members. So going back to the 2019, they came together, they created the task force with the idea of supporting farmers with all of the challenges around sustainability, right? Climate change, a changing regulatory environment, the fact that they were not being, in many cases, profitable from coffee. In other cases, not even though they might be profitable, they don't have enough income to have the dignified standard of living. So the idea is to work on living income, but we see it as a step towards prosperity. We don't want farmers just to have an income that is dignified, but to be able to prosper from coffee, just like everybody else in the change. So that's the idea behind all of the work that we have been doing. Key issues around the ICO that I would like to highlight. It has a really strong convening power, because we, in our meetings as representatives from the government, when we go to work in some of these countries, the government is there, Ministry of Agriculture, when there is a coffee institute. So bringing those players together with companies, it's a major thing that very few organizations, if any, can do. Additionally, we as ICO, we provide a lot of information, market information that comes out periodically, and people have been receiving that for years, which tries to provide some transparency and provide some knowledge about what's happening in the market, so people, countries, producers, cooperatives can use that information to be better, to make better decisions. And additionally to that, because of all of this, we can bring together key international organizations, development partners, key agencies that could help through partnerships to fund a lot of the work that farmers want to do to be able to have a better coffee sector in their countries. So that would be a summary, a little bit of what we do here.
Perfect. And now I want to see if I understand it correctly. The because you used a lot of terms there that we're not, as an industry, typically associated with. Intergovernment is something that we don't really think about, right? Because a lot of people, the barrier to entry into this industry is so low that most people don't really know what the ICO is, who it is, what it does, where it gets its power from, all of these kinds of things, which is really why I wanted to have this discussion. And my big thing is that I think that people have mislabeled the SCA with actually being the ones chartered to do what I think the ICO is actually the one that is chartered with doing. Which I am very happy about the fact that we're having this conversation for that reason. If I understand you correctly, well, actually, let me ask a question first. Is it correct that you guys get your power, for lack of a term, or your legitimacy as an organization from being connected with the UN?
Well, no, I would say that our legitimacy comes from our members, the governments that together say this is the organization in which we feel our voices are represented and that we want to help to grow the sector. When we started, the United Nations helped us in the process, but we are actually not. We have a relationship, but we're not affiliated to the United Nations as of now. The executive director sometimes goes to the General Assembly of the United Nations as a
representative.
Yeah, but just to be there as an observer. That's the term that I was looking for. But yeah, we are not. The legitimacy comes from the government of Brazil, right? Has a representative here, and then the voice of the government. That in the case of Brazil, they have conversations with the private sector, with civil society, with different, and they bring that voice to the ICO. The same with the government from Togo, Angola, Malawi, so all of the members. So that's what brings legitimacy. That takes the governments, again, elected by the people of those countries, that represent and they support the sector in those countries, that brings that together form us and our members, and I think that's where the legitimacy comes from.
I have to say that confuses me a little bit because, I'm glad that we're having this conversation, because if I'm confused, I'm sure that there are other people that are confused by that. And the reason I'm confused by that is because if the ICO is representative of the supply chain in consuming countries and producing countries, where does the ethos come from that governs the direction and the values and the decision making that the ICO is responsible for?
So the government of each country brings that voice, representing from the producers of the country, the citizens, right? Because that's another key point. In some cases are consumers, in the case of European Union, right? And they bring that to the decision makers of the ICO. The key decision making body of the ICO is International Coffee Council, which is where all of the members, 75 or so members, come together and make decisions. Now, how we work, for the most part, we work in consensus, which is, as you can imagine, extremely difficult to achieve. But we believe, the old saying that by going on consensus, going together, we may go fast, slower, but we go farther. The moment that we achieve consensus, people are, okay, this is what we're going to do. It took us forever to discuss this, but now we are clear on that. So when that meeting happened a couple of weeks ago here in London, the latest one, the 138th meeting of the International Coffee Council, and that gives direction to what the ICO does. So back then, in 2019, 2020, that group came together and decided to create the task force that I coordinate, to have a space beyond government where they can come together with private sector, in this case the companies, who also signed that declaration to say we want to work on this. We want to create key activities, key initiatives that can actually help to move the needle in allowing farmers to have a living income, as we described, allowing to work towards prosperity, and tackle key issues that affect, such as the climate crisis and so on. So that's how the governance and the power, how that was creating and why that exists. That's what my task force is not something that just can go away in this case, because it was all of these governments together decided to do it. So all of them would have to come together to make different decisions about what happens next.
So the businesses, when we talk about the public side of things and the private side of things, I understand that the governments are representative there. When it comes to businesses being represented, are we talking about corporates?
Yes, company.
business? Big business.
Yes.
Who represents small business in the ICO?
There is a way, there is for the 2022 agreement that was already signed at the ICO, but the different governments need to agree. There will be a space, this task force disappears and becomes a working party, and that will be a space for different stakeholders beyond large companies to be part of what we will call a board of affiliate members. So civil society organizations, cooperative, and other type of companies will come and be part of that. Going back to what we are intergovernmental organization. That's our members. We believe that through those governments, everybody in those countries should be represented. So indirectly, they represent consumers in that country, producers in that country, large and small businesses in those countries too. So through that. The task force, as it was created, is completely free for any company to join, by the way. They can sign the London Declaration, they can agree to the roadmap that we have set for ourselves, and they can join. It's open to that. Now, through the task force, we have a few, in addition to the companies, there are other 4 representatives of the private sector that, among their members, that include a smaller company. Talking about the Sustainable Coffee Challenge, for example, the National Coffee Association of the United States, Coffee Board from India. So it depends on that. But now, as task force members right now, there are not small companies there. That doesn't mean that they cannot join. It means that they haven't joined at this point.
Why do you think they haven't joined?
I think that it depends on many things. Part of that is access, right? When companies joined, they came back in 2019 to London, and they participated in the meeting, and they say, we want to participate in this. We know of this. We know of this information. We want to support financially too, whatever work happens. So seeing all of that, it doesn't make it that easy for a small company to do, right? But we have a lot of observers of the task force that include small companies. So in that, today, companies, medium and small, participate, but not as a member, but as an observer. Doesn't mean that they cannot participate as a member, but most of come from the observer part and in the work of specific work streams that we do.
And how is the ICO funded?
We're funded by our members, the government.
Okay.
They provide the funds every year for financing the activities of the organization. Now, the task force and the activities that we provide as a task force, they're funded by different partners, such as, and all of this information is available online, by the way, such as, the GIZ, which is, a German development arm of the German government. Companies also provide support for the task force budget for the activities. I mean activities, like some of the studies, the different convenings that we have for producing countries. So some the big sector dialogue that we had a few weeks ago here in London too, the CGL, the CEOs and Global Leaders Forum. So companies provide support to that, pay for that, for those expenses. But the big budget of, well, not big, but the organization.
Easy, Tiger.
The budget of the organization is paid by the members.
Okay. So now that we have a baseline for what the ICO is and for what the task force is, in the next episode, we're going to start digging deeper into understanding what a living income is for coffee producers, folks. So join us in the next episode where I see this getting very, very interesting. Peace, love, and peanut butter. Have an amazing rest of your day. I really hope you enjoyed this episode, friends. Please don't forget to show us some love by subscribing, liking, commenting, and most of all, sharing this podcast with your friends. Check the show notes for links, including our sponsors and our Patreon. And stay tuned for more great conversations on the Daily Coffee Pro by Map It Forward.